Thank you very much, Shino, and thank you for having me, on your program. Now, talking about the mobile revolution in Nigeria in the past 22 years, if people can recall, prior to 2001, when the digital mobile license were licensed, Nigeria was having an environment of monopoly in terms of telecom service provision. Services were provided by government owned and only one company, which is Nitel. And it was mainly dominated by the fixed service, only. And those were the days when people go and queue up in Nitel to make an international calls. Those are the days when you apply for a telephone line. It takes months or even a year or more to get a line where it's available. And those were the time when actually telephone lines were only available in major centers, state capitals, and few major cities, around the country. Um, Total, line available then was anything between 400 to 500,000. The tele density then was nothing to write home about, a fraction of a percentage. So then the Nitel actually, um, at some point in the mid 90s, also tried to introduce the analog mobile phone for the first time in Nigeria, which was also very expensive, and almost a status symbol, is not within the reach of a common person. The cost of then was something up to half a million or more, at that time to get the analog mobile phone. So that was the era pre, 2001. So when the 2000 in 2001, the digital mobile licenses were, actually auctioned in a very, very transparent manner, and that brought out, about participation of few, of course, foreign companies that came in with the first digital GSM, and uh, which was a digital version of the mobile phone. And since then, we have progressed, sustainably, you know, um, uh, improving in terms of subscriber base, improving in terms of uh, connectivity, access, and national spread. From 2G, we move into the 3G era. From 3G, we move into the 4G era. And now 5G is, available in the country. And there is a commercial deployment of 5G, across major cities. Um, the 5G, of course, route we took is what we call the non-standalone, where it's going to work with the 4G technology, because generally both 4G and 5G are data-centric, technologies. And today, if you notice, um, most of the service providers, the four major service providers, are using what we call a circuit switch fallback. So the 4G and above are only used for data. Once you want to make a phone call, voice call, it will go back to 2G or 3G to make the to make the voice call. And so we now have over 200 uh, million, active subscriber in the country. So it's a progress. We have broadband penetration, substantial. We have internet usage, in a substantial manner. And so the landscape has been that of progress and certainly 5G is not the end. Already at the level of the ITU, work has started on 6G, what is termed as a network 2030. Um, as you recall, after every 10 years or so, a new technology is coming. So 5G is a network 2020, and by 2030, we are expecting a new also set of technology that will probably offer something over and above what today's 5G can offer. So that has been the landscape. Now access has been, made every strata of the society, from the lowest, income earner to the highest, have access to telephone. Is affordable, is accessible, because at the NCC, they have a policy of 3 H's. That is availability, accessibility, and affordability. And over this period, I think the commission has achieved those objectives very well. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. I think the telecom revolution has, in a very huge way, influenced, and in a positive manner, so to speak, on the social and economic life of our country. First of all, the industry has attracted huge foreign direct investment. From that 2001 to date, close to $100 billion have been actually invested in the industry. So that is a huge in the economic aspect um, uh, of the of the of the sector. Again, also it has um, created a huge number of jobs, both direct and indirect. Direct in the sense that we have a lot of Nigerian engineers now that have been trained by these telecom operators, are now being exported out, as chief technical officers, um, um, uh, planning engineers, and so on, to other jurisdictions, to other, um, um, countries around Africa in particular. And also, we have a lot of indirect job creation, you know, um, um, where people have also, engaged in a lot of commerce, trade and commerce using the telecommunication infrastructure. Um, and in the social aspect, it has actually brought about um, um, a lot of social inclusion, in the sense that uh, everyone can afford a telephone line, and therefore people have access to information. Access to information has increased, and social interaction among people using various, technologies, things like WhatsApp, Facebook, TikTok, WeChat, and the rest. Um, so there is a lot of social interaction going on, and social inclusion um, as a result of the telecommunication industry, and access to information. Today, news disseminates so quickly from wherever it happens, and news not only within Nigeria or around the world is on our fingertip all the times. So the industry actually has influenced positively in both economic and social aspect of our people. Yes. As you are aware, the Nigerian Communications Commission is an independent regulatory body for the telecom industry. And for that, the commission actually, over the period of time, has come up with clear a set of rules, for the industry players. They've developed different type of licenses for different service levels, such as um, internet service provisions or value added service, both in the upstream and downstream sector of the industry. And they've also over the period, developed regulations and guidelines to actually guide the industry, um, um, to protect consumers, and also to uh, give the industry players the right tools, to 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 play, the game in the industry. And they have been able to also carry along, the industry players, in the rules making, because the NCC has a uh, policy of participatory, you know, regulatory activities where the service providers are part and parcel of the rules making, where they take part and consult the industry widely before they come up with, any any rules or any regulation or guidelines guiding the industry. And at the core of that is also uh, consumer code of practice, and also very good compliance monitoring and enforcement activities, to ensure that service providers actually play their roles, and the consumers are not short, charged or cheated, So the commission, to a large extent, has played really key role, and in a very positive manner. And it has emerged the best regulator, African regulator, for a couple of years, as assessed by the International Telecommunication Union. Thank you. Now, there are a number of course, factors. One is the appropriate legal backings for the regulator as an independent regulator. The Nigerian Telecommunication Act 2003 is a major instrument and instrumental in actually uh, influencing the exponential growth, of this sector. Um, Again, also the act has made the commission uh, financially independent, so to speak, because you cannot do much if you don't have enough, funding and leverage of, funding, so that with the financial independence, the commission can act more professionally, and to spend money where it is supposed to spend, um, in terms of getting the necessary regulatory tools, in terms of training, the staff, and so on. And also, um, the they've been able to, of course, create the enabling environment, break barriers for entry. It becomes, they made it very easy for anybody to enter into the system once you have the right, the requirements are made. Um, and that also um, brings about the transparency and predictability of the commission. That has also helped, because the commission over the period is being seen as a very, very transparent organization, where necessary resources that are required by the industry players, such as spectrum, numbering resources. All these are being actually um, given out in a much transparent manner. So these are all factors that actually influence the rapid, growth in the industry. Um, with the also the commission has been, benchmarking, around the industry, around the world, to see what are the best practices and domesticating them. And so these factors actually are all contributory factors in terms of the revolution and rapid growth in the industry. Thank you very much. Well, 5G, for all intent and purposes, I think is going to improve the um, technological advancement in the country, but certainly it will come with a lot more challenges than what we had before, because 5G, as I earlier said, is a data centric. You will do a lot, in terms of data capacity, in terms of download speed, in terms of multiple connectivity, and all that. 5G is actually going to help a lot more industries, things like Internet of Things, IoT. So more and more devices can be able to connect it under 5G, than 4G and 3G. And then of course, the speed, will also be much higher. And also uh, there will be automations, there will be machine to machine communications, and so on. So 5G will bring a lot of uh, new and emerging, uh, technology, platforms for better performance. But it will also come with a number of challenges, particularly right of way. You know, because of the spectrum being used by 5G, you need um, 3-4 times the number of base station within a square meter than 4G or 3G that will require for you to provide the same level of service. So that means you need planning permissions for more base stations. And then you need also 5G can also work better with with the base stations being actually backhaul or connected with fiber. So we need, for us to get a good 5G experience, we need every base station connected back to the core network via fiber. And that will now bring about right of way challenges. Already we are having a lot of challenges in terms of right of way, where uh, fibers, operators are getting, a lot of challenge in terms of getting permit to lay their fibers or even to install base stations, and so on. And also another challenge that 5G might bring is the device itself. The devices are costly. So for some time before it becomes more pervasive, it will also be might not be accessible to the to the lower end of the society, because the devices are very, very expensive as at today. So these are the challenges that 5G will bring. But in terms of benefit, of course, we can have better, connectivity. We'll have uh, more uh, technologies such as Internet of Things to be able to deploy for agricultural activities, for security, activities, services, for educational services, and so on, learning online, and even commerce and industry. Today, good enough a lot of financial activities taking place, online and so on. So 5G has those advantages as well as those challenges that I mentioned above. Thank you.
Thank you again. You talked about it in past. I would like for us to time to it. That's the mobile revolution. Is just about numbers.
Yes, thank you very much. We've seen the benefits, of the telecommunications during the COVID-19 when there was a lockdown, where even teaching and learning has, actually gone online. So, as you rightly said, it's not about even numbers, and it's just even beyond the telecom, industry itself. It has affected all our social and economic lives in the field of education. A lot of universities have gone online. You can able to, people can learn a lot of commerce and industry activities. I mean, sales of commerce and trading, actually, I'm trying to say, is now online. People can, order, a lot of things at the comfort of their houses and being delivered. You no longer need to go to the, airline offices to queue for booking, to fly and all that. So it has actually improved um, uh, efficiency and effectiveness even in governance, and it has reduced cost of so many things, because before now, even for you to, probably you travel to Lagos only to get to there and see the person you wanted to see is no longer there, or is also out of town. But today you can able to make, call and, informed, offhand that you are coming and he's expecting you. So that way, there's a huge cost reduction, time also, saving of time, and so on. So it's a, it's a also access to information. Now it's much more, government can able to, inform citizens of their activities and policies much more better, and it disseminate much more, faster. And also in agriculture, for instance, uh, issues that deals with agricultural inputs like fertilizers and others, or even credit facilities, are being actually, implemented using the uh, uh, mobile network. So it has actually improved our socio-economic life in all aspects of education, health, and agriculture, banking and finance, energy, and so on, as you rightly said. Yes, yes, absolutely. The actually the mobile revolution has actually helped in financial inclusion in a very big way. Less than 50% of Nigerians actually do have bank accounts. So how do we reach out to the those that are unbanked in the rural areas and so on, for instance? And if I can give a bit of a context, um, mobile money actually has uh, grown and helped boost the economy a lot in places like Kenya, and their own um, modus operandi was, it was telco led system. Telcos were actually at the forefront of providing those financial services. But when we started initially in Nigeria, the central bank insisted that it must be the bank led, and the bank didn't have those infrastructure. So the mobile money and financial inclusion didn't actually, happen on time until they came to the realization that they need to get the mobile operators actually fully involved. Um, so that has actually helped, and now there are so many people actually been able to send money or receive money without having any bank account, through the POS and others, even in the rural areas, even in the rural areas. So um, the inclusion and realization of the role of the mobile network operators in this aspect by the CBN has actually helped in actually um, promoting and boosting financial inclusion um, in the country. And as of today, I think the the financial transactions that are going on, online, um, are in trillions. So um, it has really helped in boosting financial inclusion and making transactions much easier and across the country, and also bringing in those that have no bank account into the financial system, of the country. Okay, now um, coming to elections and using the telecom infrastructure for uh, um, live transmission of results and so on. Um, Prior to the 2019 election, the INEC uh, chairman actually paid a courtesy visit to the EBC of NCC and requested for collaboration to see the possibility of using the telecom industry in assisting INEC to improve the integrity of their elections, uh, to leverage on the technology to improve the integrity of election in Nigeria. At that time, INEC had 120,000 polling units across the country. So a technical committee was formed between the NCC, INEC, and the service providers. At that technical committee, a determination was made as to what is the minimum level of service level that can able to do that job, can able to transmit the result. Um, as you are aware, the result sheet is like an Excel sheet where you have a number of information, including the, the the name and code number of that polling units, the state, the local government, registered political parties, and the score each one of those political parties scored during the election, the total number of accredited voters, total number of registered voters, and so on. So it's an Excel sheet. So that kind of information cannot be transmitted using 2G. You need a minimum of 3G to be able to transmit the result sheet. So at that time, it will also determine, that was before the 2019 election, that 50% of the polling units are not covered by 3G. What happened was that NCC requested INEC to submit the coordinates of all the polling units in the country. And those polling units was imposed on the coverage map of 3G, 4G, across the country. So it was at that time, about 50% of the polling units were not actually covered by 3G or 4G. So that was the situation. So there was infrastructure deficit in terms of um, um, rendering that service of online, and instant transmission of uh, results, using the telecommunication, infrastructure. The infrastructures were not in all the polling units that are we have in the country. Now, coming forward to 2023, I can imagine the challenges even at that uh, 2023 election. Um, of course, there was improvement. There were more 4G now services in more locations than 2019. But even then, about and then INEC has also actually increased their number of polling units from 120,000 to 176,846 polling units across the countries. And at that time also, that is before, just about the 2023 election, still 3G, 4G covered only about 83% of the total polling units across the country. So you can imagine it was not possible for transmission to take place in something like 17% of the polling units across the country completely, even if all things being equal. So the major challenge I think we have is the infrastructure constraint. We need to expand this infrastructure um, to cover all nooks and crannies of the country. At least, as of now, we should be talking of 4G coverage because of course, it's much better. But then, even if those coverages are there, the security situation has its own negative impact on transmission because a lot of times, you find glitches, you find, service outages, either by vandalization of fiber infrastructures or by, service providers, engineers not accessing, some of the locations, due to security problems and so on. So I think no matter what people talk about, the technology has its limitation. The limitation first was the lack of adequate infrastructure, lack of adequate coverage of all the polling units in the country by a 3G or 4G, signal. That was a major uh, factor. And I think, if I may advise, there should be a very deliberate effort, looking at now 2027 election to actually extend broadband services to all the nooks and crannies of these countries so that we can leverage on the uh, on the technology to improve the integrity of our election. But these challenges are there. You cannot transmit these results with 2G. You need minimum of 3G, and there is no uh, coverage across, all the country, across the country, that cover all the polling units INEC has in terms of so that that transmission can happen, instantaneously. Yes, As you know, the telecommunication is in the exclusive list, and it's under the control of the federal government. However, when it comes to land and environmental issues, the federal government doesn't have any land. So states and local governments have those. And when you look for right of way, certainly states and local government play a key role. The NCC has actually tried uh, approaching the National Economic Council that is actually chaired by the federal government. I mean, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in which all the state governors are members, and key cabinet members like Minister of Finance, the Attorney General, and Budget and National Planning and so on are all members of the National Economic Council, including the CBN and so on. There is need for government to actually bring in and synergize with those states and local government. There is need for the federal government to take a proactive measure to make those state governors understand there is benefit, mutual benefit for all in terms of allowing and giving access to the uh, service providers. Imagine telecom has now even become like a social service. We can't do without it. Now, states and local government pay for their people to get access to drinking water or electricity and so on. But here, they are not even required to pay anything. The service providers are going to take all the financial burden, but just give that access, allow that access. That has not been happening. The NCC has approached the governors forum. It has gone to the National Economic Council, to preach and to actually solicit the support of the state governors in terms of providing those access for right of way or planning permit, create a one-stop shop in all the states where operators can get the permit within our recommendation was within 4 weeks. If they apply, they should be able to get permit for right of way or planning permit to actually install a base station. So there is huge work to be done because a lot of the state governments are using the telecom service providers as cash cow. They wanted to generate internal revenue and imposing all sort of levies and tax. In the process, they seal base stations, and so on. And then also there's a lot of disruption to already laid fibers by road construction companies and so on. So all those things need to be addressed if we really need to reap the benefit of technology, in particular for our electioneering activities in the country, because we can't afford to have outages or glitches when election is going on, when results are being sent. We can't afford to do that. And for that to happen, the federal government has to devise a way of bringing in these state governments and local government authorities into this fold and understand, some kind of a mutual, cooperation and collaboration, so that service providers will get those permits right of ways as easily as possible. The objective of type approval is twofold. One, to protect the national telecommunication infrastructure itself, and then secondly, for health and safety of the user. Now, in terms of type approval, NCC must ensure that these devices are actually produced according to the standards and the specification, agreed and for such, devices. Um, there are a number of um, um, tests that the NCC carries out in order to ensure that, or to confirm if the devices are good for use. Things like uh, for mobile handheld devices, for instance, there is what we call specific absorption rate. Um, there are also frequency conformance test. There is also electromagnetic compatibility tests and so on. So all these tests have to be carried out to ensure that these equipments are actually being produced according to the internationally agreed standards. Where they are not, they bring quality of service issues. A lot of times, people will be complaining. The network is bad, but sometimes it is the quality of the handset they were using that actually contributes to the bad quality of service they are receiving. And also health and safety. If they are not produced according to the standards, you find out that they might be radiating more radio frequency than they're supposed to, that will affect the health or safety of the user itself. So type approval is very, very important, and it is very important that users or subscribers actually purchase devices that are type approved by the NCC. NCC has a list of all type approved equipments on their website. People can check, before they buy, based on the model as well as manufacturers' uh, for instance, whether it is Nokia or iPhone or Samsung, each of those models that are being sold in the country, you find them, if they were type approved, you find those models on the NCC website. So it is basically for the safety of the user as well as safety and security of the network itself. Um, when we talk about equipment type approval. Okay, so quality of service, of course, is a major challenge, and the quality of service that we get today is not actually satisfactory by all standards. But 95% of the time, the quality of service challenges we are not technical, but they were environmental. One, there was multiple regulation. There are states that have actually established agencies that are overseeing telecommunication infrastructure. And in the process, they actually stop service providers from getting access to their sites. Those agencies will go and seal the base station to the extent that operators cannot even have access to maintain them. They cannot have access to refuel the generators and so on. So this issue of multiple regulation and multiple taxations are major issues contributing to poor quality of service. Another, of course, is the power. Of course, we know there are no power, public power that is actually providing power to the telecommunication infrastructure. All the base stations in these countries you see are actually running on generator most of the time. So the issue is fuel availability and fuel distribution is also another challenge, particularly diesel. And it's expensive and sometimes it's not even available, readily available. Operators have to, do a lot of unusual things to be able to get, diesel and distribute. Then, of course, the security challenge as well, where once, ordinarily the maintenance engineers of those telecom service providers are on 24/7 work. At all times they are doing shift and working around to ensure that everything is good. But because of the security situation, a lot of places, once it is 6 o'clock, for instance, even if something happened and they see it, uh, they cannot able to go. They can't send their engineers. And then also in where we have this Boko Haram ravage, so many base stations have been burned down, and service providers could not be able to erect again because of the security situation. So security, um, multiple taxation or insecurity, multiple taxation, multiple regulation, and another factor is this vandalization. At a time, we found out that in a day, the service providers will experience something like 40 fiber cuts in a day. 40 fiber cuts in a day. So once there is a fiber cut, those associated base station will go down. And then even where you are to, the system will automatically transfer the subscribers to the nearest base station. But if the capacity cannot take all, you find out call drops and poor quality of service, will arise. So vandalization, as well as road construction activities. A lot of the road construction companies, they don't actually contact the service providers when they are expanding roads. I think in a way, Ministry of Works also has blame, because they give those right of ways, and when they want to expand those federal roads, at least it is their responsibility to tell the operators that these roads are going to be expanded and work is going to take place. Please come and probably relocate, your fiber or something like that. But that is not happening. So uh, construction companies will just start work and start, uprooting those fibers, and so on. So these are all actually factors that are contributing to the poor quality of service in Nigeria. They are actually not technical because the system itself always records and take stock of what has happened, activities that have happened in terms of cold drop, and so on. So how we're going to do that is still we need support. There is need for support from the states, local governments, with the federal agencies and the NCC, to to reduce these instances of multiple regulation and multiple taxation, uh, and work with the security agencies to improve the security situation, and perhaps also the service providers engineers would have a special, security task force to escort them where they need it to carry out maintenance and so on. So basically, as I earlier said, quality of service challenges that will happen um, substantially is not based on technical reason, but based on those environmental factors I talked about. Very good. The International Telecommunication Union, or ITU, is the specialized agency of the United Nations in charge of telecommunication. and all telecommunication standards are actually produced by, by the ITU. The ITU has three major arms or bureaus, we call them. Radio Communication Bureau, where all the issues of spectrum allocation and satellite orbital slot, allocations are carried out. The database also kept, in at the Radio Communication Bureau. And then you have the Telecommunication Standardization Bureau, where all the telecommunication standardization activities, standards for 3G, standardization for 5G, 2G, 6G, or standardization for IoT, Internet of Things, virtual realities, and so on. All the technologies, the standardization activities actually uh, happen at the ITU. And the other sector is the development sectors, how to, actually bridge standardization gap, and then how the telecommunication sector is actually to be developed, across the world, manner. So ITU has a very, very key role in in making telecommunication services around the world, because those major resources like the spectrum, um, um, if the ITU did not, you know, given those allocations, would not be able to use. And then with that, the world will also have, harmonization, and because interoperability and harmonization can only happen when we have a a single source of standard across the world. So that is why it's easy for you to carry your phone now and go to UK or Europe or America or wherever to make a phone call, because the standards, global standards, are agreed at the same source, and manufacturers actually uh, uh, manufacture their devices according to those standards, whether the handheld devices or subscriber devices, or the network devices, and all that. So, and the commission actually had a very good collaboration with the ITU. Commission staff, the NCC staff, have been part and parcel of the standardization making process. They attend all the, most of the conferences, and also the standardization group. Before my retirement, I was also, myself, I was the chairman of the African group in the Internet of Things and Smart City and Smart Communities Standardization Group. And I was also a global uh, vice chairman, but chairman for the entire African region. I was chairing the standardization group. So ITU's, NCC staff have been participating in all um, um, study groups, quality of service, future networks, you know, um, uh, security, and all. There are so many, study group activities or standardization activities that are taking place, and the NCC has been collaborating and 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 participating, in those activities, and that has actually made uh, uh, our environment um, uh, conducive for uh, telecommunication activities, because we bring out whatever that has been agreed at the international level to the national level for implementation. Yeah. So, um, as I said earlier, 5G do have a lot of advantages, but also do comes with a number of challenges. Um, it is data centric, so it's good in terms of download speed. Is good in terms of massive, machine type communication activities. Is good for very good mobile broadband. Um, But then the challenges of cost of devices is a major issue, because as of today, it's not affordable for the common man, 5G devices. On the part of the operators, cost recovery in the 5G is still very low. So the expansion of 5G, across the country is going to be very gradual and very slow, because use cases for 5G in the country are still not uh, robust in a way, but uh, because of its benefits, and the world is also going, towards this advancement, we cannot afford to be left behind. But as I said, it's going to be slow and gradual in terms of proliferation and reaping the benefit of 5G, because of the uh, cost of the devices, as well as the use cases that are meant for 5. Because for mere voice call, you don't need a 5G. 5G are for very serious businesses of industry automations, for instance, and so on. So it's it's a it's a good technology. We will continue to pursue implementation of 5G, but it will not be um, fast like the other lower technologies, because of those challenges, and also the use cases in this country. Um, Industries will benefit more in 5G. There will be a lot use cases for industrial use. Of course, there are also 5G use cases for security, use and so on. Um, uh, and so security agencies need to explore those avenues, for 5G to address some of these security challenges that are taking place. As they always say, they have to use both kinetic and non-kinetic. I think technology is the way forward in terms of addressing, some of these security challenges in this country, and 5G will offer that very well. Yes, I think one of the greatest beneficiary of the digital transformation in this country, I think, is the banking industry, the financial services sector. Today, uh, trillions of transactions are being actually carried out, and people can sit down at the comfort of their uh, home of offices to transfer money, from one bank to another, you know, pay for, flight bookings or hotel bookings, and so on. So um, it's one of the major beneficiary, and uh, also the education sector. As I said earlier, the COVID lockdown has actually proved that substantially, how the education sector uh, was able to continue uh, uh, without serious disruption, um, using the telecommunication um, infrastructure. So I think what remains to me is the security uh, sector, is not taking full advantage. I think we should, pay more attention to security use cases using these technologies and the transformation that we already have in the sector, so that this, is being addressed adequately. And even agriculture, as I also mentioned earlier, now, farmers are being, reached, through, farmers union and so on, for soft loan distribution, for farm implement distribution, and so on, and so forth. So the transformation actually has um, uh, helped, some of these sectors, and I think and we have achieved a good milestones, in terms of financial services, education, and even health sector, generally speaking. Yes. So Internet of Things is happening, and this is something that will continue to dominate our life, in the sense that nearly everything in the houses or in the offices will be connected going forward, whether they are domestic appliances, kitchen, appliances, or even as mundane as, opening and closing your window blind. Uh, you can do it remotely. So Internet of Things is going to transform our life, tremendously. Um, um, it can bring efficiency and so on. For instance, there are uh, people who have, leverage on those Internet of Things to make their homes really automated. They can switch on or off their air conditioner before they come into the house. They can, you know, um, um, even refrigerators can able to order drinks when they are uh, down. For instance, connected to any one of those supermarket, for instance. So, and then, in the field of agriculture, Internet of Things can able to help us to, determine, you know, uh, when, what type of fertilizers a certain area requires, how many, water that are required, if it's an irrigation, at what point the irrigation can be done, and even automatically actually, order those system to do it. So Internet of Things is going to change, our lives, the way we do things, the way we act, the way we, do everything, in life, in terms of making it, easier, making it faster. Uh, However, it also have, challenges of security. You can imagine if everything in your homes is connected, and a bad guy, able to take control over the internet, because anything that is going to be connected to the internet, um, you cannot you cannot guarantee full from security. You will do your best, but those bad guys also have way of circumventing, those security, steps that you've taken. So it is uh, uh, a very welcome development that will assist, make our lives easier, but it's also frightening in a way that vulnerability, and security concerns are are there. Okay, so in the course of our discussion, I have alluded to the fact that there is infrastructure deficit. For us to achieve that policy objective of the president, we need to expand the telecommunication infrastructure, particularly broadband infrastructure. We need to get fiber to every nooks and crannies of this country. It is one aspect. And then secondly, we must actually create a synergy and some kind of a workable, solution as to how states and local government will give right of way and planning permits for operators to expand network easily. And then the third aspect is the security. They must create a secured environment in order for these infrastructures to be deployed and also to be able to maintain. Uh, so so creating those jobs using the digital platform is possible, is achievable, but we need to address some of these challenges. One, the infrastructure deficit. I told you even what happened, with the election issues. There is need for us to expand broadband infrastructure, across all the nooks and crannies of this country, to be able to achieve that policy objectives of Mr. President. And then the second aspect is to address the challenge of this multiple taxation and multiple regulation. And so there must be a working relationship or some kind of arrangement with the states and local government, to be able for them to understand the need for this infrastructure, for the benefits of their citizens, and so to be able to give right of way and planning permit to the operators, in good time, and at an affordable rate. And the third, challenge to be addressed, is the security challenge. Where there is a secured environment have to be, provided or to be ensured so that service providers can able to not only expand those infrastructure, but also able to maintain at all times, what they have on ground. So these are actually the major challenges that needed to be addressed, but they are achievable. It is feasible and is achievable, and it is a very good policy pronouncement as far as I'm concerned, and that will, you know, uh, create, jobs for our teeming population. And I think technology, um, uh, uh, infrastructure is the easiest way, in addition to agriculture, to get people, working and to get people into meaningful, uh, earning of livelihoods, in our country. Yes. You know, public service for me, um, it is a um, service to humanity, and my uh, approach to public service is to always um, look at the public goods, look at the legacy you're going to leave behind. Throughout my years of service, for instance, I have never allowed any mail that comes to my desk untreated for 24 hours. I attend to everything that comes to me immediately, unless I'm not on seat at all. But whenever I'm on seat, I must deal with everything that comes to my desk, before the close of work. And in terms of the department I headed in the NCC, as you said, I knew how critical and how important the Department of Technical Standard and Network Integrity is. And therefore, myself and my team, we gave our best in terms of providing the necessary guidance, the necessary tools. When I say guidance, in terms of bringing out the necessary guidelines and regulation for quality of service, for installation of masts and towers, for laying of fibers and all kind of things, and also providing resources like numbering resources, given type approvals on timely and so on. Generally, the regulator, the NCC role is that of facilitation. We facilitate, and create the enabling environment for the service providers to provide service for the benefits of Nigeria. And that actually guided all my actions, when I was in service, facilitating and creating the enabling environment, removing all bottlenecks, and barriers, for service providers and so on. So it is for me rewarding service. Yeah, I served this country for over 3 decades before retiring. And as you rightly said, my actions and activities as a public servant when I was in service have well been also acknowledged and appreciated by the industry, as well as even the management and the staff of the NCC. I remain grateful to that. And I think my advice is for every public servant to take the service as a trust, public trust that we must, fulfill when we are given the opportunity. Thank you very much.
As we celebrate the mobile revolution, there's some final thoughts you'd like to share with the Telecoms audience regarding the future of the Nigerian telecom.
Yes, the future of the Nigerian telecom, sector is bright. The commission is always at the forefront of looking at new and emerging technologies and also implementing them in Nigeria. One thing that I know is the whatever new or services or technology that will emerge, the NCC will bring into the doorstep of Nigerians, and the NCC will do everything possible for the Nigerians actually get benefits, for an affordable rate. You can see how even at the time when everything is skyrocketing, the commission has been able to maintain affordable rate, for telecom services in the country. So it is bright, it is promising, and Nigerians should support the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) in the discharge of its mandate. Thank you.